I just thought it'd be fitting that I actually explain why why we've been talking about Ben 10, what my connection is with the franchise. And it's basically, I've been watching the show when it first aired back in December of 2005, and I just came across it randomly. It was on, so I was like, oh, I'll watch that. And I've basically been a fan of it ever since then. So much that I've collected the toys as the show was airing. I wasn't able to collect all of them, but there's just some of them I was collecting as the show was airing. And basically, and I was also buying the DVDs. These are the individual volumes. I have since started replacing them with complete season sets, but hey, I like keeping these around because they're something I had when I started watching this show, or more specifically when I was first collecting it. And we also have trading cards that I collected. And grab the last one. And I also have collected some of the video games as well, like Protector of Earth, Ultimate Alien Cosmic Destruction, Omniverse, the first Omniverse game. I have played the other games, but I just don't have physical copies of them at this moment. Yeah, I mean, it's literally just them. But yeah, that's just a little history of me, the franchise. And I also wanted to introduce Troy and, well, initially it was just Troy, but then Nanette said she was watching it with him, so I brought her in as well, so I could hear both of their opinion on the shows as we were going through. Welcome, Autobots and Decepticons. My name is Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of Chaos, and I am joined by Troy Pacelli, also known as Karton the Klingon Cleric, and Netta from Netta's Network. Welcome.
Good morning, or good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you might be in this world.
Good point.
Yeah.
For us, it's morning. Isn't it evening for you, Matthew?
Yeah, that would be evening.
Yep.
Yeah, so today we are coming close to the end of our Ben 10 streams. We're now on season 7 of Omniverse. One more season to go after this one.
Yeah, and as I was telling you back in the green room, I've never really warmed up to this omniverse. You brought me into Ben 10. I was very pleased with it. Really excited about it. Maybe not the same way I would have been if it's something I would have watched as a kid, but definitely saw it as a great show, very enjoyable. And I just feel like Omniverse has just, I don't know if the writers just got tired of doing it, or if they changed the formula just enough that it just didn't feel right to me anymore, and I just haven't warmed up to it. And as you were pointing out yourself, this season is probably going to be the hardest slog for us.
I'm just thinking writers that didn't really know the history were trying to write episodes or trying to make things fit without really understanding what was supposed to be going on. And it's like, well, we'll just do this. And no one corrected them.
I do feel that there were some episodes that definitely, hit those notes. But I do feel by and large, it has less to do sometimes with the writing than it does with jettisoning characters that we loved, focusing on characters that not so much. Sometimes, at least I will give them this. When they do seem to change something that doesn't fit canon, they have at least a reasonable explanation for it involving time travel, recreating the universe, whatever it was. At least they acknowledge it, which is more than some franchises do.
Yeah. I will also point out that the writers and like the directors on this show aren't just like new people who have been brought in. Well, I mean, a
Yeah.
few episodes will probably have new people brought in, but multiple episodes are the same writers and directors who have been
Yeah.
working on this franchise before Omniverse started.
Which I think would explain what I was saying about how if they do deviate, they're aware of it, and so they do make some acknowledgement of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there we go.
Yep. Now, on with the filler.
On with the filler, exactly. That's exactly right. My gosh.
Yeah. Okay, first episode, Clyde 5.
Yeah, we got an episode and character named in that same naming convention as Ben 10 and Kevin 11 and so forth. So, hey, well, there's that. Yeah, well, there's that anyway, yeah.
Yep. There are a few things that I want to point out. There is actually a little sneak Transformers reference at the beginning, or not the beginning, like early in the episode, where we have the vehicle mode, or the Cybertronian vehicle modes of Bumblebee, Wheeljack, and Jazz in the background of one shot early on.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's like so quick and so like on screen for a very little amount of time, if I didn't point that out, you probably would have never even known it was there.
Yeah.
So I do kind of wonder what the point of even including it was, if it was like so minor and so unnoticeable without someone pointing it out.
Yeah, I mean, this made me, one of the things I've been thinking about is how they have a lot of little Easter eggs, a lot of reintroduction of characters in background shots and stuff like that, or cameos by characters from other franchises and stuff. And I think I have to believe that at least part of that is the writers and whatnot, that just they're playing around and amusing themselves to some degree. Sometimes just being humorous and whatnot. And I also sometimes wonder, especially with the returning characters, if they're just reusing, artifacts of animation that they have easy access to make it easier on themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, like with the Transformers, like with the seeing Transformers character models in the background.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be a case of the fact that the art director for this show, Derek J. Wyatt, also worked on some of the other shows that those characters were in. Like we see Teen Titans characters, because Derek J. Wyatt did the art design for that show. We see Transformers characters in the background because he worked on that show as well.
Right.
I don't know if that's entirely the reason, but I feel like that's definitely a part of it somewhere.
That could very well be.
Yeah. Can you say it again? You're very quiet in that.
I said that could be very well. That could very well be.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking. And again, I'm not. That's actually one of the charms of the overall show. So I'm not, saying that in a derogatory way. I'm saying that's one of the things that that I have enjoyed about it. But yeah. So, what do you think? Did we start this season off with a bang with this episode?
I wouldn't necessarily call this episode like a start of like an episode where it's like you have to watch this one at the start of the season and then watch the
Right.
rest. I feel like this one's definitely if you was to see this, if you was to accidentally like miss this episode
You
and
wouldn't even
then see the
notice.
rest of them and then
Yeah.
catch this episode at a later point after you've watched some of the other episodes, I probably wouldn't. It probably wouldn't be that like shocking because this episode doesn't really. I mean, multiple episodes in the season don't really feel like they're like continuing a story.
Yeah.
Also, I can't figure out what his head, like the horns on his head, are meant to look like. Because I keep thinking maybe it's Hela from Marvel, but then the horns aren't going in the right direction.
Sure.
And then I think maybe it's Dr. Polaris from DC, maybe. But then the horns aren't quite that massive, and there aren't that many of them.
Well, and then you also have to wonder, is it intentional? I mean, are they, and if it is, why would they be doing that? You know?
I mean, I can't find a listing of any kind of like specific design that this is referencing. If
Right.
it is,
Right.
so I'm just going to assume it's not referencing a design. It's maybe just it looks familiar to me. Maybe that's
You're
what
right.
it is.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've always pointed out when people, talk about, I don't know, one of the Eternals, looking like Superman. And I'm like, yeah, just because he's dressed in primary colors isn't really enough, and he happens to have that superhero outline and whatnot, isn't really enough, It's clearly not meant to even homage. So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, a lot of heroes are dressed in red and blue.
Right.
I mean, that's mostly because it's like heroes are in primary colors, villains are in secondary colors.
And the
Basic color
limitation.
theory.
Yeah, and the limitations on the colors they had available to them in the early days of printing. So, yeah.
And also they would use those colors to kind of tell a story, sort of.
Sure.
Like the Hulk is a hero, but he's purple and green,
Right.
which are villain colors, and he's often depicted as like a monster that's not accepted by society. And I think,
Yeah, and he really did serve as the villain in a lot of episodes. Yeah, not episodes, but storylines.
yeah, a couple of the early comics depicted
Yeah.
him as like more villainous,
Right.
or at least leaning in that direction.
Yep.
And I think
Think of him more as a force of nature. You don't really ascribe to him being evil, but he is definitely the challenge that needs to be overcome and subdued.
yeah, and you also have both heroes and villains in colors like in solid, just black and white.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I would say don't read too much into similarities unless it just really stands out and you go, oh, that character is clearly meant to reference Raven from the Teen Titans or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
and then not only do you see it, but you know why they're doing it, and you go, I see what they're doing there.
Yeah. And if it's the same art director, they may even just be using the same animation model.
True. That's exactly right. That's what I was talking about with artifacts of the animation process. They're just using models they have access to. You see this a lot with Pixar films. You see the Planet whatever restaurant truck, in a background shot, and you're like, oh, it's all a shared universe, and you go, no, not really. They're just reusing a truck model, and they don't bother changing the logo because it's cute and it's just more work.
Yeah. I do find it kind of convenient that the actual character himself has the symbol, like the same symbol of roughly the same shape and design as the this Tekadon weapon that he has.
Oh yeah, just by
Obviously-
coincidence.
Yeah, obviously the Tekadon weapon was designed, both him and that was probably designed at the same time.
Yeah.
and then they had it in the episode, an explanation as to how he got it. But if you like take out the part about the fact that it was all designed as like one solid design first,
Right.
and you think more about the in-story reason, it's kind of unusual that he has like some of his clothing is the same color as the thing that he's never seen before and is only recently got.
Right.
And even the symbol, which I'm pretty sure is meant to be 5, or a very stylized 5. Like, that's a very convenient design there.
Yep.
That's definitely a case of them working backwards in terms of like designing the character, then coming up with a reason for
Especially
why.
since I doubt the rhyming convention would work in an alien language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we even have a variation on the opening.
Yes. Yeah. We get a little.
Hot five.
Yeah. We get a distinct breaking of the fourth wall there, which is always funny, I suppose.
Yeah. I did also notice that this season has like a slight variation on the opening overall.
What do you attribute that to?
I have no idea, because the difference isn't really that substantial. It's really just the music sounds slightly different, and I mean the visuals for the opening are the exact same as previous seasons. It's not like Galactic Monsters where they actually changed the visuals and made it more Halloween themed.
Right.
But in this case, it's really just I noticed that the music sounded slightly different.
Yeah.
Similar to how with like Star Trek: The Next Generation's opening or Deep Space Nine's opening, where the first like 3 or 4 seasons have a specific opening, and then the later seasons have the same opening, but it's the music's slightly different. There's a very minor difference.
Yeah. I the only reason I bring that up and ask that question is because, you kind of. It's not an accident. It's not, whatever. They specifically had to create a whole new opening. And that implies that there is some sort of reason that they would do that. That's the only reason I mention it.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think the only like thing that I don't think they actually like changed anything substantial. Obviously, for this episode, they made an actual change to the opening, or a more substantial change to the opening. But then the rest of the season, I have no idea why they made a minor change to the music of the opening.
Yeah.
And it's probably not even really noticeable. Probably if you watched this season by itself, and then you probably wouldn't really notice it. It's probably because I've like heard of the opening for Omniverse multiple times at this point.
Yeah, could be.
Oh yeah, and this episode has Aunt Vera for the second time in this franchise.
Oh, right.
The only time she appeared was in the first season of the original show. So it's been it's been years, both out of universe and in universe.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fairly standard episode.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much going to be the case for multiple of these episodes.
Yep.
Yeah, and this season is there are a few episodes of this season that I did really enjoy. Okay, let's move on to the next episode. Because I think aside from not really having much to say, we're also going to probably end up going into all kinds of tangents.
Yeah, probably. But then again, I blame that on the writers of this season. I mean, there's a lot there to set us off on tangents, right?
Yeah. Okay, next episode, Rook Tales. Now, this one I feel like is it is definitely no stranger to sci-fi shows and sci-fi stories. Because you have one character who's very traditional and against technology. He's basically doing whatever he can to maintain the older traditions.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's a Pokemon reference.
I never did follow Pokemon that closely, so I wouldn't have caught that.
That's the only line of the song I know.
Yeah.
I do remember watching Pokemon, although I was 5, so
That's fair.
yeah.
Then we'll excuse you.
Yeah, exactly.
I was at the age when I was probably part of that generation that would like watch Pokemon. Although most people of the generation who watch Pokemon still like Pokemon and enjoy it and collect the cards and everything, and I don't. That's mostly because I view Pokemon as a show I watched when I was 5, and I'm not 5 anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, we have. There are actually some things I noticed about during this episode. Obviously, you have the this character here who's like the traditional, or the character who's very like old or traditional, all about the old traditions, and is against technology, and he doesn't want the some of the people of the planet like Rook and like his sister, and he doesn't want them leaving the planet and moving away from what they've been doing for years. And there is kind of a little bit of hypocrisy in what he says and what he does, because there are moments where he himself, like there's a part where he like tries taking both Rook and his sister back to why can't I say the name? Ranaganda or Rava?
To their planet.
yeah, their planet. And basically, while he's on Earth, he basically he goes up to this this ship. He even mentioned about this ship. He tells them like what the ship does, and that it will be going past their planet or be going near their planet or something like that. And basically, there's like some hypocrisy in the fact that he is against technology, but he's perfectly fine getting on board a spaceship or hiring a spaceship to take them back to their planet.
Yeah.
And Rook's sister even points out to him like the hypocrisy of this, and even he himself like recognizes the hypocrisy of what he's saying. Although that doesn't make him like stop and reconsider his actions, but like it's more of he recognizes that he's like being hypocritical about this, but kind of more justifies it rather than reflects on his actions.
Yeah, and I actually forgot what I was going to say. Sorry. Oh, I remember. I remember. When you have a storyline like this that could be very topical, especially for us in our franchises where they have been so preachy, you get a little nervous. Are they going to hit us over the head with something? But what I do appreciate is when they're really speaking to a very general trend. You can project on this anything you want to, whether it's conservatism versus progressivism, whether it's, hypocrisy versus, true leadership, whatever. It's there. These things are as old as time and human history. And you can project. Those kinds of stories work well because everyone can find something in them. There's nothing specifically, oh, this is specifically referring to the Reagan era or something. I don't know. Just pulling out of the, So, yeah. So, I mean, again, I'm still being positive about this season. I'm just, not didn't necessarily enjoy it that much.
Yeah, and we also have this little guy who until now hasn't actually had a name, although that's actually been like in the story rather than the creators just not giving him a name, but like they're actually like fleshing out Rook's the culture of Rook's home planet some more with that.
Yeah.
By having it like that, when they still have the tail, they don't have a name, and then when the tail falls off, then they choose a name. And he chooses to call himself Rook Ben.
Sure, why not? Yep.
There was something else that I was going to say about this episode, but I've completely forgot what it was.
See, that memorable, huh?
I did enjoy this episode, for the most part. I definitely wouldn't call this a favourite episode, but I did enjoy this one. I also like the part with when Rook first tries fighting this martial arts master, and like initially Rook loses, and then like near the end of the episode he then like tries again, but he realizes that he's like fighting him wrong, and that what he was doing was fighting a master of a specific martial art, with the same martial art that he'd been taught. Because obviously Rook's not quite as good as him in that specific martial art,
Right.
but Rook remembers that he's actually learnt like other fighting styles from other planets that he's been to and other things like throughout his like travels and other like places he's been. And so he uses like a mixture of the like traditional martial arts of his home planet mixed with other fighting styles that he's learned and observed.
Right. And since you do bring that up, that does remind me of not only something my sensei used to say, but things that I've seen other martial artists talk about in videos. You talk about specific martial arts, and there is definitely a talk among real fighters that say good in one martial art is as good as being good at dance. You've practiced it, you know the rules of it, you practice it against other practitioners of that particular martial art. So you'd never really challenge each other. And it's not until you encounter someone using a different martial art that you realize what the shortcomings are of your own. You really have to study the wealth and breadth of martial arts to really hone your skills as a real fighter. So, yeah. I mean, obviously they simplify it a lot here with a kid's cartoon, but that is absolutely on point if you do study martial arts.
And also because this is a work of fiction, that means this guy knowing martial arts means he can perform superhuman feats. Like he has a move called Rock Fist, where he just punches the ground and then it creates like an earthquake.
Right.
Yeah, Ben doesn't do martial arts. He does smash, break, destroy.
Well, in a way, that's kind of true, especially when he started out. I mean, he took to his superpowers, his special abilities, I guess. They're not really superpowers because they're the ordinary abilities that alien race would have. But they come out as superpowers for a human. So his special abilities, he just uses them as, blunt objects, blunt tools, the way you would expect a child to do, and it's over the course, I want to say over the course of all of these series, but really it's generally only during the course of an individual series that we see this growth in Ben as he starts to get more mindful and thoughtful and analytical, thinking outside the box and so forth. But
I still expect him to go Hulk smash.
Hulk smash. Well, got to be careful with that because there are,
Okay, Ben smash.
Well, that he could probably do and get away with, and everyone would get it. So you're right.
I think the thing that annoys me the most about Ben is that he will destroy something like someone's shop.
Yeah.
Which he does frequently, and he doesn't apologize for it or try to help them put it back together again. He just is like, oops, and then leaves.
Well, I guess that's what I was kind of thinking about when I pointed out the whole thing about, growing over the course of a series and then basically ends up
hitting
regressing.
The reset button.
Yeah.
Although at least with some of the shows, they don't like hard press the reset button. They kind of lightly press it.
Yeah.
But it's still rude.
Well, it is. I'm not saying that. And honestly, here's a negative that I'm going to hit because of this. Those good character growth usually causes the audience to like a character more. Bad or loss of character growth, character regression has the obvious opposite effect. You start to like a character less. And I think that's how I've been feeling a little bit about Ben, but as we get into the next episode, definitely about Gwen and, whatnot. We'll talk about that too.
Well, since this episode is more of a Rook-focused episode,
yeah.
How do you feel about him since you've been introduced to him? Because we've been with him for at least 7 seasons now.
Yeah, and I would say actually this is a good example of good character growth, right? I mean, he was not someone you cared much for initially. And as time has gone on, you kind of warmed to him. It's the kind of thing, though, that given where we've been with people like Kevin and Gwen, you get to thinking, well, I love, I'm starting to really like this character of Rook. Does that mean next series, he's either going to disappear or he's going to, become infantile again? I don't know. You get guarded.
I mean, as far as I'm aware, Rook isn't in the reboot whatsoever.
Well, that's the fact that it's a reboot brings up a whole other, problem. But yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
Okay, next episode, Charm School.
yeah. And the return of Gwen Gender Studies. I mean, I know there's kind of no pleasing me, right? Because on the one hand, I'm like, you know, I miss Gwen. You got rid of Gwen, I get ticked off. But then when they bring back Gwen, she's all, completely different style. I wouldn't if I didn't know, if I hadn't been watching the show all along, I'd have been like, who is this? Who is this character?
Yeah, when I first looked at her, I'm like, that's supposed to be Gwen?
Yeah.
I didn't like her at all. I still don't like her. I don't like the way that they changed her.
Yeah.
I mean, this episode even makes like a little joke about the fact that her design was changed. Because there's that like part where Gwen is talking to Kevin, and he says like about he's like, yeah, people change when they go to college, and then he looks there and
Yeah.
he's looking at her when he says that, and she like gives him this kind of look, and then he just sort of turns around and just continues what he was doing.
Well, you're right. And it's the kind of joke where it hits a sore spot, so it doesn't land very well with me,
Yeah.
It's like you're acknowledging the suck is what I see, So
And we also have Hex has come back.
Yeah, that's true.
And also Charmcaster again.
Right.
Who is still talking to the zip purse thing.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure there's a reason she's talking to her. I don't think it's just she's crazy. I think there is actually a reason. Because I do recall in previous episodes that she'd turned some other characters into like mini totems, and I think they can talk to her or she can hear them or something like that.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, and here's the Teen Titans character designs.
Right.
That we were literally just talking about a couple minutes ago with the whole character designs carrying over.
Yep.
I did like the fact during this episode. I did like the part where Kevin and Rook just sort of walked off to kind of start like modifying Kevin's car and like and they were talking about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And it was entertaining seeing Kevin and Rook trying to geeking out about cars and different things that they can add to it and try to make it more difficult for Ben to wreck the car.
Which, in fairness, is also just good for the car, and what they're using it for. So yeah.
Except near the end of the episode where they completely forgot to include any kind of resistance to magic.
But you can understand that too, right? I mean,
yeah, because then they themselves aren't
right.
They have no magical knowledge, or I think Rook might know a little bit, not in the sense of knowing how to use magic, but knowing of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this episode was actually pretty simple now I think about it. This one was really just a couple of entertaining scenes in that. Oh, weirdly enough, I definitely found the whole secondary plot with Rook and Kevin making Kevin's car invincible more entertaining than the actual plot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a good sign.
And also, as per usual, Google's not exactly being the most helpful. It's only showing some images for this episode. Specifically, like a couple at the top here, and then as we go further down, it starts showing images from other episodes.
Yeah.
Both past episodes and episodes that we haven't got to yet. And images from the reboot for some reason. Okay, yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this one, so
Yeah.
let's move on.
Right.
Next episode, The Ballad of Mr. Bowman. Oh, Bowman. I have no idea which way is the correct way to pronounce his name.
I think I've heard it
Bauman.
both ways.
I would say Bauman. Because the AU sound.
But
You're
this
the
is,
wordsmith, Troy.
but this is a character that Netter certainly sympathizes with. I don't want to say likes, but you know.
Yeah, because Ben keeps accidentally wrecking his store anytime he's in there.
And it does make me wonder. And now that I look at him again, I have to wonder if he is meant. This may be a stretch, okay, and this may also be just because of my age. But I wonder if he is meant to be seen as an homage to Mr. Hooper from Sesame Street. He's drawn a little bit like him. You know, Mr. Hooper, Mr. Bauman,
Even Mr.
both
Whipple.
Jewish names, yeah. Even Mr. Whipple, too. Good point. Because they're shopkeepers that are constantly being bothered by or antagonized by the hero character, right? In Sesame Street, it was Big Bird. This is Ben 10. In the commercials for Charmin, it was people coming in and squeezing the Charmin and messing up his display.
Well, that, and if you're squeezing the toilet paper too much, you're squishing the paper tube inside, which then makes it hard for people to put it on the roller. So
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're taking things to a little bit of an extreme, but, you know, yeah, I mean, it's you understand it. They're not evil. They're, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of
And there's
understandable.
even one episode where Mr. Bauman told Ben, please don't wreck my store.
Right. And what
And
does
he
he do?
wrecks it anyway.
It's a store, yeah, exactly. Anyway, yeah, that was a little tangent too, but it is about Mr. Bauman, so that's why we wanted to talk a little bit about him.
You know, I thought you were going to bring up like a Dennis the Menace kind of dynamic.
Oh, hadn't even thought about that. Good point. That is another good example of that.
Yeah, but that was more antagonizing his neighbor.
But in the same way, you know, it's not that he's doing anything intentionally to hurt the person. You also understand entirely why he'd be annoyed. It's a very similar kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. I still find it weird that there are two different Dennis the Menaces. The American one and then the British one.
Well,
British one?
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, because, you know, it's the whole neighbor dynamic, I feel like, and I wouldn't know this. I've never actually been over on your side there, but I just from what I see in TV and whatnot, I just feel like it may be a little bit different. I mean, we do have analogs here. I mean, I see a lot of housing in the UK that is very similar to our like condominiums and well, definitely apartment buildings and row track houses where they're all right up against each other, right up abutting each other. Here in the U.S., though, however, in general, that that Middle America, Dennis the Menace, Leave It to Beaver type of neighborhood is very much detached houses with clear delineations and separations between neighbors. So it's a very different dynamic where, the kid's ball going in the other neighbor's yard, that should not be happening. You should know to control that. And, I'll be honest with you, there are times where if you wanted to, you could be completely isolated from your neighbors and not have any communication with them whatsoever, which is a little bit more difficult when you actually share a wall,
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, to what Nanette was saying, yes, there is differences between the two.
Yeah. I believe both versions came out like around the same time.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm gonna have to look into that because I know it was all originally based on a, like a comic strip. So I have to wonder if, they were drawing from the same source material or if they were, there must have been some connection there, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, if you want to find like the British version of Dennis the Menace, then that would be in B&O magazine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have no idea where you would specifically find the American Dennis the Menace because obviously I'm not American.
Oh no, I definitely know that. That's not it. We have it's an old newspaper thing. So these days, if I wanted to read the original Dennis the Menace, I'd literally have to go to the comic book store and find, trade paperbacks that kind of collected them all, which is what you do with the old Superman serials and all of that kind of stuff. All that stuff it's available now in trades.
Yeah. This was actually one of the episodes that I did actually really enjoy.
Yeah.
Because it focused mostly on Mr. Bowman and most of the story was focused on him.
Yeah.
With like different versions of Ben acting as a supporting character.
Yeah.
Like you have a 5-year-old Ben at the beginning, and then after that you then get the 11-year-old Ben, and it kind of acts as this episode also kind of acts as an explanation as to why there's two different designs for Volcanus and why the Alien Force Ultimate Alien design why he's like a little like toddler, or he has a little toddler body. Because we have, following like 11-year-old Ben, we get the original design for Volcanus, and we actually get and then this story actually explains how and why Volcanus is in it, why he has a different body and why he's now in a mostly robot body with his normal head and then a baby or a toddler type body.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to assume his species can regenerate their body over multiple years, considering most of his body was blown up, and then 5 years later he's now just the head and then a small little baby-sized body. So I'm going to assume it's going to take him a very long time to eventually regrow his body back to the size it was.
That makes sense. So you're thinking kind of like Deadpool, regenerating body parts and stuff.
Yeah. Although I don't recall Deadpool spending 5 years to regenerate a little bit of his hand.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit slower, but still, yeah.
Yeah. Although most of the time, Deadpool wouldn't necessarily actually regenerate a limb, but would rather just pick up the limb that been detached and then just put it back where it was, and it would just reattach.
Yep.
You know, I'd almost forgotten that this character had actually appeared in the series before Omniverse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because this is the design for the character when he appeared late in Ultimate Alien.
Oh, right.
I don't remember if he had the same voice actor, but the design obviously wasn't the same.
I didn't realize it was supposed to be the same person. That's that's the big problem with those kinds of things. And it makes me wonder why did they do it?
Yeah, I mean there'll be another episode later on later on in the season who also has a very different design, or is like a same character from from Ultimate Alien who has a very different design in the current show. Okay, next episode, Fight at the Museum.
Obviously, a play on Night at the Museum.
Yep.
This is actually a really interesting movie.
It was a good movie. That's true.
Yeah, I think this episode actually has this episode's title. I think it has the exact same words and letters. I think it's just pretty sure fight and night are spelled roughly the same, but with one letter different.
Right. True.
And we also get, remember last season when I mentioned about the random female Jet Ray character from
Right.
last season, and I mentioned about apparently Derek J. White will make a design of Jet Ray as long as it's a random female character and not actually Jet Ray. Yeah, apparently that's not the only alien that Ben doesn't turn into in this season, but does appear in this season. And that being this character right here. This alien here is the same species as the the three rainbow eyed chameleon alien that Ben acquired during Ultimate Alien.
Yeah.
The one episode written by Peter David that you did.
Oh
that
yeah.
You didn't like. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that alien. Yeah, apparently that one is also an alien that Derek J. White didn't like and didn't want to draw a design of. But apparently the character is another character is female, so perfectly fine to draw a design of that species.
Yep.
I have no idea why. This is like the second time this kind of thing has happened. And Jet Ray and what was it? Chameleon, I think he called that alien. Yeah, those two aren't the only aliens that Ben just doesn't turn into in this show, but those two are the ones that still have some kind of a design in this show.
Yeah.
Just instead it's just a female character that's been designed to be that species. We also get an alien museum with all sorts of alien artifacts. And there's even like a reference to the monolith from 2001: A Space Odyssey. Although, weirdly enough, despite the monolith being absolutely massive in the museum and being basically unavoidable, and for some reason there aren't any like actual images of it here. Okay, no, apparently it's actual images of the monolith in the episode aren't actually here on Google, despite the fact that it was absolutely massive in the episode, and it basically was visible in any shot, or any shot where you can see it in the background. It's basically the most obvious thing there.
Right.
And we also have the return of Kai.
Oh yeah.
Once again, I really felt like this show could have benefited by having her be like an actual main character of the show, rather than her being like a one-off side character every now and then.
Agreed.
Because I'm pretty sure she wasn't in the last season whatsoever. And we also have Spanner comes back as well, and we get a little bit of follow-up on the whole Ben assuming that Spanner and Jimmy are the same person. Although at this moment Ben doesn't even like doesn't really keep his secret. He just straight up says to Jimmy, "Yeah, turn into Spanner already and help me."
Yeah.
And Jimmy is obviously confused as to what he's talking about, until Spanner then actually walks in at the same time that Jimmy's there, so we actually see them in the same shot. That basically, this episode basically confirms Jimmy is not Spanner. Although we do actually get some other confirmations about Spanner in this episode as well. Namely that he is from the future.
There you go.
Yep. And he has a particular interest in making sure Ben and Kai are actually in a relationship.
Yup.
I'll leave it to your imagination as to why he has a particular interest in that.
Well, yeah, I think I know. I mean, it seems obvious.
Yeah.
Although, it does... they clearly were going a different way with it, but I like the idea of everybody assuming this person is that other character, right?
Yeah.
That's not the case, but because the character is from the future, it is him, but from the future. That would have been a great angle.
Yeah. We also get, I'm pretty sure I saw an image of him down there. We got, where is it? Oh, there it is. Yeah, we get this character called Exo Skull, who is the same character from the original series, you know, the original Ben 10,000 episode. Because at the start of that episode, this character here destroys the Ben 10,000 statue and attacks 10-year-old Ben, assuming it's the future version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Although, this is kind of confusing, because in that episode, they mentioned that this character is a creation of Dr. Animo.
Mm-hmm.
Which, obviously, it being in the future, you can kind of assume you don't have to fill in the gap that much. It's not too unusual to think that a future version of Animo would create something like this. But this version of Exo Skull, he's not mentioned to have any kind of connection with Dr. Animo.
Mm-hmm.
And also, this version of the character is in the present day, so it's slightly confusing there.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea if they're still going with him being a creation of Dr. Animo, or how he was even created to begin with. Now, this episode is one that I have seen before, like rewatching it now for like this stream.
Mm-hmm.
I believe. Yeah, I think this episode is the only one that I have like previously seen before watching them now.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the season I hadn't seen before watching them now. Yeah, so this is the episode that kind of ties into the a storyline that's happening in the background. Not necessarily for the season overall, probably more so for next season. I don't really have too much to say about this episode.
Yeah, not really. Another example of trying to what do you say? The trope of tempting the hero out of his normal, heroic mode.
Yeah, because this one has the. Although now I think about it, the whole mystery with Spanner, they didn't really spend that much time with that. I think it's just like 2 episodes before now where they had it. I think it's like an episode before now where they were questioning who Spanner was, and then an episode before that where Spanner was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode where they haven't revealed who Spanner is, but they have sort of dropped the whole mystery of, oh, it could be this person. Next episode, Breakpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Another movie reference. Although this one, I suppose, isn't just a like a reference, like in the title, but the actual plot of the episode is also a movie reference as well, because it's referencing the movie Point Break. I suppose you could consider this episode a loose adaptation or a loose remake of that movie.
Yeah.
Because the basic plot is very similar. And I'm very happy we've got to this point, because this is the last episode where this character appears. Obviously not Wildvine.
Right.
Let's get a better image. I see. Google chooses now to be even less helpful. Yeah, this guy here.
Yeah.
Fistrick. This is the last episode we're going to see him. After this episode, we're not going to see him again. And I'm very happy about that because I've begun to become very like annoyed with him like constantly reappearing.
Yep.
Because he does have like the one stick that he does just over and over again every time he appears. Although I do like the twist of like the twist on the whole Point Break plot, and instead of like a gang wearing the masks of presidents, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, this time it's a gang led by Fistrick wearing ID masks that makes them all look like versions of Ben.
Right.
Yeah. And I've just got to think there must be like this surreal moment where Ben locked as Wildvine when they put an ID mask on him so that he then looks like himself. That's got to be like a weird experience because he's stuck in an alien form, but he looks like himself still.
Yep.
Although I do feel like it's probably a bit of a giveaway that their voices are the same still.
Yeah.
Even when they look like Ben, their voices are still their voices.
Right. Exactly.
Because I feel like someone's got to notice that, like, the 10 or 11-year-old Ben shouldn't have, like, a very deep voice.
Right. That's true.
And then one of them is acting, like, moving and acting like a chicken.
Do you think that, and I'm not sure this was well executed, if it's the case, but do you think the intent was to be like a reversal of the whole Omnitrix concept, where we're seeing some other individuals turning into Ben the way Ben turns into others?
I mean, I can now that you bring that up, I can definitely see that, but I have no idea if that's what the writers were necessarily intending with that.
Good point. Yeah.
I'd imagine if that question was brought up to them, they'd probably say that they intended that, but whether or not they actually did, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, and the mode by which they change might make a better, clearer reference to the Omnitrix.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I remember from the movie Point Break, this episode actually follows multiple story beats from that movie pretty closely. I can only imagine that the people who made this episode must have been like big fans of that movie. Because that's the only reason I can think as to why this episode not only has like a similar name to that film, but also shares a lot of like the plot elements and specific scenes from that movie as well. Okay, let's say goodbye to Fistrick because we're never seeing him again.
I'm not necessarily having a problem with that.
No, I don't have a problem with that either. Okay, next episode, The Color of Monkey.
The Color of Monkey. That is obviously a reference to the Tom Cruise, Paul Newman film, The Color of Money, which in and of itself is a sequel to the Paul Newman, what's his name? Jackie Gleason film, The Hustler. So we're going to have a Ben 10 episode about pool. No, probably not.
I mean, I've not seen either of those films, so I have no idea what the plot is.
Oh, they're really good, really classic films. You can see The Color of Money without having seen The Hustler, but you're better off if you have seen The Hustler. It's very interesting progression of characters.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna start this off with, I'm not a fan of this design for Simeon.
No, me neither.
So there's something wrong with the ice cream. Tiffin flavored ice cream. I don't know what Tiffin is, but it doesn't sound appetizing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, this design for Simeon, it's weird, it's confusing me, because it's making me think he looks like a stereotypical lesbian. He's not a woman, he's a male, so I'm confused.
Well, actually, I see why you went there. I was thinking rich preppy, older rich preppy.
Yeah.
You know, like some what do you call it? Someone you'd see at the country club, you know.
Yeah. I think it's a combination. I think the reason I see that, I think it's the combination of the haircut and the pink t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's actually his hair, or if he's got a wig on his head.
Well, we do know that that species does have hair or can grow hair.
Yeah. It's even more confusing by the fact that the last time we saw him in this design, he was wearing a wig.
Oh,
except it was a Gwen wig.
Right.
So either he was wearing a wig over a wig, or he's dyed his hair and...
I was going to say the fact that the hair on his head doesn't match the fringe hair like on his wrists implies to me that, well, it would have to be dyed because he's not old enough to be an older version of this race.
Yeah, and I feel like if he was older, then it would be more than just the hair on his head that would be a greyish kind of colour. I feel like multiple fur all over him would be more...
True,
well, not completely, but like have grey patches.
True.
Yeah, because I just remember Simeon looking like this.
Yep.
Obviously without the Omnitrix symbol. Although, to be fair, Simeon should probably be long dead at this point. I don't know why he's still alive.
Yeah, they never really do explain it.
Yeah, It's essentially just he survived because he survived.
Yeah. And if you come up with a good reason in your own head canon, go with it.
Wow, once again, Google is not very helpful.
Nope.
It's only like, I don't know, these images, these like collection of images right here on the screen right now are the ones related to this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the exception being this image right here, because that one's of Ben 23's version of Spider Monkey.
Mm.
And then you go a little further down, and then you get Ultimate Spider Monkey, which is from from an earlier episode. You get a Season 7 DVD cover, even though I don't think Season 7 even has a DVD release. That must be like fan made or something.
I was going to say, a lot of times you'll find fan made stuff out there because, like I say, people do like I do. You make your own until you can buy it commercially, because you always want to own physical media.
Yep. And we have drawings from the original series. I would imagine these are from like coloring in books or something.
Yeah.
And then as we keep going down, we keep seeing more and more images that are just unrelated to the episode we're talking about.
Of course.
I think if I scroll down far enough, eventually now we're just at a point where there's none of the images are related to the episode.
Yeah. Some of them not even related to Ben 10.
Yeah, like this one right here.
Right, exactly.
I would say this one, but like that one is very clearly meant to be Ben, Gwen, and Kevin. But
what's very interesting is maybe what they're doing is they're thinking through what, it more realistically should have looked like, the character, Maybe.
Yeah. It's very confusing when Google just doesn't give us much to work with. I don't know if that's a case of people like there aren't enough people like taking screenshots from the episode and uploading them.
It could also be an artifact of the reality that not a lot of people may have liked the episode, so they wouldn't spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, that is a good point.
I mean,
I just remembered, and also this season is one of the ones that doesn't have a DVD release, so...
Oh, good point. So what are they going to take captures of? So good point.
I suppose maybe if whoever decides to take images would have to resort to downloading the episodes.
Right. And again, that requires you to have a degree of passion for it that I don't think exists for this season.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think this is the second Omniverse episode to feature Rojo, I think. Because I do recall her appearing at least once before. Although that might have been an Ultimate Alien episode. Because I do recall she was in an episode of Ultimate Alien as well. I think at this point I'm just not fully clear on which characters appear where.
Yeah.
Especially if they don't appear in an episode for a really long time.
And again, it goes back to what I was saying. Why do they even bother sometimes bringing some of these characters back? Well, because they can. And bringing back a character that you've already created and you have all the models for and you've done all the legwork for is a lot easier than starting from scratch.
And you also get people like me who go, ooh, that character's come back.
Right.
And then just completely forget what happened. And then just be like, okay, so what happened to them? Where have they been all this time?
Exactly. Because let's face it, they have introduced characters by implying that they'd been around before, even though they hadn't. You know.
Yeah. Like with Mr. Bowman. He was
Exactly.
introduced late into Ultimate Alien, but during this show, they've shown him interacting with both 11-year-old Ben and even 5-year-old Ben.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, just one of those
Next
background characters
episode.
you're supposed to presume have always been there,
Right.
and you just haven't really seen them until now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And next episode, Mania.
Yep. This is, although it's not the penultimate episode, it is the penultimate episode to the last two, you know, that kind of go together.
Yeah. Yep, we get a returning Riedel character and then 2 new characters.
Yep.
We get Pa Riedel, who did appear in Ultimate Alien, although he didn't look like this in Ultimate Alien. He was actually a lot bigger and bulkier, and also didn't have as much facial hair.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this time he's smaller, thinner, and has a massive beard on his face. I feel like the facial hair, here's the image of what he looked like in Ultimate Alien.
Oh, yeah.
It's quite a difference. I feel like this change would make more sense the other way around if this design was the one that was appearing now, and then the thinner one with the beard was the one that we saw before.
Right.
Because then you could logically make the jump of, oh, he's gotten bigger.
Right.
But in this case, it's like he's gotten drastically thinner, and also grown out a whole bunch of facial hair in what we can only assume to be like less than a year's worth of time at least.
Right.
And also he has a different voice actor. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on this episode.
I know, right?
This is a very, very standard. I mean, I like Steve Bloom's performance as Pa Riedel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's mostly because I like Steve Bloom in general. He is a very talented voice actor. I mean, he even gets 2 different characters to voice, because he voices Pa Riedel throughout the episode, but at one point Vilgax shows up, and Steve Bloom voices Vilgax as well. Although Vilgax doesn't stay for very long because Marv Riedel scares him off. Which I feel like was intended as a joke. Because the fact that Vilgax, like, he's only on screen for like a moment or two. And the fact that he once he recognizes Marv Riedel, he then immediately like just goes back in his ship and then leaves. So I feel like that was intended as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although now I think about it, that joke may or may not suck away some of the intimidation factor of Vilgax. Because you kind of figure he's not exactly the kind of person who would be easily scared by someone.
Right. It is a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah. Okay. Final episode, or fine. Actually, should we talk about the final two-parter as
Yeah,
like one
put them
big
together.
episode?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. So the
Because
final.
I did kind of front load that by referring to this other one as penultimate.
Yeah. Yeah. So final episode. It's a mad, mad, mad Ben world.
Right. Which, of course, obviously is a reference to a film that Nanette really likes. It's a mad, 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 mad world. Yeah, a lot of these references are much older references I don't think the younger viewers would necessarily pick up on.
Yeah. Although, weirdly
the movie
enough,
that-
Google is auto-completing, or as I'm typing it, Google is auto-completing it
Mad,
as
mad
just...
world, yeah.
Well, actually, no. It's auto-completing it as it's a Mad Ben world.
Oh, that's
But
weird.
that's literally all it's. I'm having to get rid of it and actually manually type in the full title.
Yeah.
So this episode, I mean, it starts off being like associated with the overarching story, or not necessarily our overarching story of this season, because there isn't one, but the overarching story, like being told that will continue into next season. And given this show's track record, I would imagine that the overarching story of next season probably won't be covering the entirety of next season. It'll probably just be like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, probably.
This episode kind of has a Mad Max kind of vibe to it.
Kind of, yeah.
And of course we see the, I suppose we'll call him the Mad Max Ben.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because he's the same Ben from the from like the previous season, when Vilgax collected up a bunch of, or Vilgax and Eon collected up a bunch of alternate universe Bens, and they even draw attention. They even like draw attention to the connection between this and that, and the events of those episodes.
Well, no, I it's good that they maintain continuity. That I do appreciate.
Yeah. And we get the actual part of the episode that is related to the like the greater story being told, just not really in this season. It involves this character called Maltruin, who is collecting like pieces of himself, because he's a Chrono Sapien, and he's like collecting specific pieces of himself that have been missing. And then basically, as soon as they get past that part where he actually collects the piece of himself that he was searching for, he then just leaves the episode, and then the episode just sort of continues anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just get then we would basically just get an extended episode focusing on Ben mentoring the Ben of the Ben of like Universe 23. And also Dr. Psychobos is here as well. I feel like if you was to take out the greater story connection with like Maltruin and him collecting pieces of himself, I feel like if you was to remove that part from this two-parter, then it wouldn't really have any kind of connection to anything else other than taking place after an episode from a previous season.
Yeah.
Yeah, there really isn't too much to say about this episode or about this whole finale.
Right. Which,
I mean, this very
it's in and
easily
of
could
it.
have
I was going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, this very easily could have just worked as just a random two-parter in the middle of the season.
Yeah, which is kind of a commentary on the season overall, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, even the inclusion of the like Maltruin and his connection with greater storyline going on in the next season, even with that connection, it still doesn't make this episode feel like a finale to the season. Yeah, what was it you were going to say?
No, that was exactly it. The lukewarmness on how this fits in general kind of says something about how this whole season fits in with the whole series.
Yeah. I did kind of get a Star Trek, Star Trek the original series, the Mirror Mirror episode.
Sure.
Where Kirk's like trying to convince Mirror Universe Spock to turn against the Mirror Universe version of himself and take command of the Enterprise and actually be like a better captain.
Yeah.
I did kind of get that kind of vibe from this.
Sure.
Obviously replacing Captain Kirk with Ben and replacing Spock with Rook.
Which works because there are similarities in the relationship with those characters and their general temperaments.
Yeah. Although I suppose I got less of a original series Mirror Universe vibe and more of a Next Generation era Mirror Universe vibe.
Sure.
Or I suppose you would say Deep Space Nine Mirror Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was the only show that had the Mirror Universe.
Right.
But it was like the Next Generation era, so
exactly. That's true. I feel like it was a missed opportunity that we didn't get a Mirror Universe episode of Next Gen. That would have been cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, at least the Deep Space Nine Mirror Universe episode included some Mirror Universe Voyager characters.
True.
That would be interesting, because like, would Worf still be a member of the Enterprise? Oh, I suppose not, considering in Deep Space Nine we see a Mirror Universe version of Worf.
Didn't we see him as a member of the Klingon Cardassian Union from the Mirror Universe?
Yeah, he was the Emperor, I think.
Oh, okay. Which
How
also
far into Deep Space Nine have you watched?
I've seen basically the whole thing, but I know there's episodes that I missed because of just the way it aired here in Chicago. I could do a whole video about that. That just annoys the hell out of me. But yeah, that whole continuity of the mirror universe, which I thought did a brilliant job of going, kind of picking up the threads from the original series and extrapolating them out, doesn't jive with what Discovery did, where the Terran Empire pretty much wiped out the Klingon Empire and committed genocide, and the only survivors are scattered refugees. There's no way that there's still a Klingon Empire in the mirror universe after that.
Yeah. And I feel like the Cardassians would be more likely to try and take over the Klingons rather than form some kind of an alliance with them.
Yeah, the only reason you form an alliance is because you're of equal strength and you end up wiping each other out trying to fight with them. If you are that much more, if they're just rabble, you just, well, there's nothing to fight there even.
Yeah, and Klingons aren't likely to ally themselves with the Cardassians if they're scattered and weaker. They're probably more likely to just fight until they die.
Fight till they die, exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah, this season has been hasn't been that eventful. I don't know if that's some kind of signification of the fact that we're near the end of the show overall.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like most shows, when they're nearing the end of the end of their time on TV, they they either peak or they start to just drag downwards.
Yeah.
And normally it's one or the other. It's very rarely that a show both peaks and drags. Or maybe does a back and forth for it, peaks for a while, then drags, then peaks again, and goes back and forth. I feel like this season is definitely an indication of the show kind of dragging before the final season. Whether or not the final season itself will also be kind of just dragging its feet, or if it will actually make an attempt.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say, honestly. Also, the final season is one that I have actually seen multiple of the episodes before.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the end of season 7. We now have one more season left, and then we'll be finished with Omniverse.
Yeah. So that's what, in 2 weeks?
Yeah, we'll be covering season 8 in 2 weeks.
Okay, let's see. 2 weeks. That is the 19th. I'm getting it on my calendar right now. There we go. Alrighty then.
Yep. And we'll be finishing this right before the end of the year.
Yep.
So that'll mark this as us covering everything Ben 10 all in this 1 year.
Yep.
I suppose except the comics and games.
Sure.
But most of them aren't necessarily canon to the shows.
And I was going to
But
say it'd be really hard for us to go over those because I don't really have a way to, experience those.
yeah, unless you was to buy like a PS2 and a PS3 or Xbox 360 or something like that.
That might be a bit more investment for just commentary than I'm willing to go.
Oh, there are some great PS2 games out there.
Sure. Yeah, but now you're starting to sound like Aged Boomer trying to talk me into a game console.
I'm surprised I haven't chatted with Asian Boomer or any of this sort of thing.
I've been talking with Aged Boomer about how, because he keeps saying that Geeky Geezers is not meant to be, a gaming stream. But I said we really still need to cover gaming news when it comes up because it's part of geek culture. And then when he talks about it, he goes, he like really gets into it. And I'm like, you go, man, this is your thing. I don't know. And every time that happens, I'm like, you really should think about doing your own gaming stream. Not necessarily playing games on your stream, but talking about games on your stream,
Yeah. I mean, that certainly would be like a different perspective. Like if it was me and Agent Boomer, because obviously I'm a younger gamer and he's an older gamer, so he would probably have more memories of like some of the older consoles, or of some of the ones that I wouldn't have played.
Yeah, my knowledge of such gaming is so antiquated. I mean, it's almost irrelevant. I'm, talking about going back to things like Pong and Atari 2600.
Yeah, and my knowledge only goes back as far as the Sega Mega Drive.
Sure.
Although obviously in America you didn't call it the Mega Drive, you called it the Genesis.
Right.
Yeah, so that's it. Let the Matrix light your darkest hour till all are one.